Welcome back to Convergence Today. Today we're going to learn about a switch innovation that is challenging the LAN convergence paradigm. We will bust the myth that if your phone and computer are connected to the same wire, you are, quote, converged. I have with me John Croce, CEO of Phybridge, who is introducing disruptive technology to the market and gaining a lot of attention. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great being here.
Tell me a little bit about Phybridge before we dive into LAN topology discussion.
Great. Phybridge, our mission is very simple, is to bring technology that can help customers reduce their total cost of ownership and maximize their return on investment. And I'm sure that's a cliche that you probably hear from every company.
Yeah.
But really we take that to heart. And to do that, we know that we need to solve complex problems in a simple manner and deliver a solution that's robust and reliable. If we can do those things, then we can better serve the customer. So that's really our mission, and of course we're excited because we are disturbing the way things are done with some of our innovation. And you talked about the one, which is how LAN is converged.
Well, I think one of the biggest misconceptions in our business that if your phone and computer are plugged into the same wire that you've reached a state of convergence. And you guys obviously have a paradigm that's very different than that.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, and if you go back to when convergence first began, it was all around the benefit of getting the unified communication applications. And of course, to have voice and data intelligence being shared, the user at the desktop had to have those devices actually sharing both the voice and data information. So if you look at how the customer's topology was before convergence, the user at the desktop had a data drop supporting their computer requirements, and the data switch fabric was distributed in nature. And that distributed topology was a function of the fact that switches had 300 feet reach limitations. And all users shared the bandwidth. So the initial intent was to support a near-time delivery requirement. And it worked perfectly. And then complementing that, the user had a voice device, a phone, and supporting that phone was a topology that was designed point-to-point, meaning from the desktop, let's say on the 10th floor, back to the central closet where the voice, the PBX resided, was dedicated two-wire infrastructure. So when convergence happened, initially they said the best way to establish a converged topology is build a separate switch fabric for your voice. And unfortunately for many customers that was economically just not viable and too disruptive.
Yeah, well, why do you think that happened? I mean, what kind of was driving that change of topology?
Well, it's the change of topology was the need to get these IP applications. So voice was becoming IP based. So given that was not acceptable to the customer base, then the industry said, well, let's take voice and simply put it on your data switch topology. Voice is simply another application. Put it there and everything's going to work fine. and as a result, that methodology forced this convergence point to be at every desktop. So that's where we came in, and that's where, when I met Oliver Emanuel, the founder, he was the inventor of our switches, is he understood the requirement being convergence, the ability to have the user use these great UC applications. But he also understood the importance of simplicity in getting that application to the desktop. So he came with the invention of the only network switch in the world to deliver both Ethernet and power, or PoE, over a single pair of wire with over 1,200 foot reach. So what that meant is that the customer can leverage their proven reliable voice infrastructure, that point-to-point topology that's been working for 50, 100 years, and just transform that into an IP path with power, ideal for the IP phone. So now the convergence point, instead of being every desktop, is in the central closet where the application resides. So the user gets all the convergence benefit, but doesn't get all the cost, disruption, and risk of needing to, in essence, upgrade their entire switch fabric. What they end up doing with our solution is optimizing the LAN, the local area network, for convergence. What are your customers experiencing as they've gone through this implementation of your product? Well, it's interesting. Both the customers as well as our partners initially, it's such a foreign thought to them. You know, they've been taught for 10, 15 years, this is how you converge. put the phone on the data switch fabric, and we're coming in and saying, no, that's not necessarily the best way for your customer.
Right.
And it's a change in thought process.
Yep.
So when we go through the articulation of the benefit, again, I'm a real believer that the more something makes common sense, the more likely it's going to work.
Absolutely.
So as we go through our articulation of why you would consider this as a better topology, they start to going, that just makes sense. You know, I can have voice continuity, so if your data LAN fails, your voice will survive. Well, if you daisy chain your computer to your phone, your data LAN fails, your voice is gone. Well, for a customer, that voice experience is critically important to their business. So you don't want to compromise that topology. Again, this is something that the industry imposed because of technology limitations. There was no switch that could do what we do until we brought it to market. So now that we have it to market, it's to shake up the trees and say, hey, there's a better way to converge your LAN, and we have a solution. So we have customers that say to us, it's too good to be true, I don't believe it. And you know, I heard that before from a technology company, and I'm sure you've heard that about a great new technology.
Sure. Well, I mean, given that, why don't we dive into a case study? So join us in part 2, where we'll dive into a case study where we're going to talk about a customer that was able to save over $1.5 million, as well as accelerate their implementation. That's coming up in part 2. Thank you.